Amid tears and cries, 89 South and North Korean family members greeted each other on Monday for the first time since they were separated by the 1950-53 Korean War. They gathered in the North Korean resort of Mount Kumgang, Diamond Mountain, on Monday afternoon, having earlier crossed into the north to meet their loved ones. "I didn't even know if he was alive or not," Lee Kum-seom, a tiny, frail 92-year-old, met her son for the first time since she and her infant daughter were separated from him and her husband as they fled. Her son showed her pictures of his family in the north, including her late husband. "This is a photo of father," he said. Lee replied, "I never imagined this day would come. I didn't even know if he was alive or not." Read more. Korean family reunions. Too little, too late. Rare family reunions could be the last for elderly Koreans. Millions of people were displaced by the conflict, which ended with an armistice rather than a peace treaty, so the two Koreas technically remain at war. Direct exchanges of letters or telephone calls are banned. The groups of relatives will meet 6 times for a total of 11 hours during their 3-day stay, according to South Korean news agency Yonhap. The South Koreans were chosen from a large pool of applicants, using a computerized lottery system, while the North's system is unclear, but it is believed citizens are picked according to their loyalty to Pyongyang's authoritarian government. The waiting lists are long, and for many applicants time ran out. Last year alone, 3,800 South Koreans who applied to take part died without ever seeing their relatives. For many of this year's participants, their first meeting after decades of separation will likely be their last, considering their age. 93 families were initially selected, but members of 4 families could not travel from the South due to ill health. South Korean Unification Minister Ryu Kil-jae pushed 91-year-old Choi Jung-ho's, one of many wheelchair-bound participants, to the bus. The reunion program began after a historic North-South summit in 2000, and the waiting lists are long. For many, time ran out. Last year alone, 3,800 South Koreans who applied to take part died without ever seeing their relatives. 86-year-old Heo-kyung okay waving from a bus as she departs to reunite with family. The South Koreans, with an average age of 84, left the eastern port city of Sokcho at 8:30 a.m. on board 10 buses, with half a dozen police vehicles as escorts. 96-year-old Kim Se-ong-yeon from South Korea met her North Korean sister Kim Sok-ri and other relatives for the first time since they were separated following the 1950-53 Korean War. She brought gifts ranging from basic medicines to framed family photos. 88-year-old Lee Sun-hyung from South Korea met her 72-year-old North Korean brother Lee Yeon-jun for the first time in decades. The first family reunions were held in 1985, and several more from 2000 to 2010. None had been held since then, and the latest come at a difficult time for the two Koreas, which are still technically at war. U.S.-South Korean joint military maneuvers are to begin next week. Author Brina Goldenberg on off reunions. The current reunion program began following a historic inter-Korean summit in 2000 and was initially held annually before becoming scarce. The last event was held in 2015. Since then, the North has tested 3 nuclear weapons and multiple missiles, claiming to have demonstrated that they could potentially strike the continental United States. This year's reunion event comes after a diplomatic thaw between the two Koreas and a historic summit in April between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Some experts say the warming relations could suffer a setback if the North refuses to accept a U.S.-led call for complete nuclear disarmament, and that is expected to figure into another inter-Korean summit set for next month in Pyongyang. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said in his New Year's address that his country was in the final stages of launching an intercontinental ballistic missile (ICBM). U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, whose inauguration was set for January 20, said on Twitter, "North Korea just stated that it is in the final stages of developing a nuclear weapon capable of reaching parts of the U.S. It won't happen. North Korea tested its first ICBM, the HWASONG-14, on U.S. Independence Day. Kim reportedly told his scientists that the U.S. would be displeased by the launch. This, he said, was because it was given a package of gifts. On its Independence Day, Trump wrote on Twitter in response, "North Korea has just launched another missile. Does this guy have anything better to do with his life?" Pyongyang tested its second HWASONG-14 weeks later. Experts estimated the new rocket could reach the U.S. mainland. Trump lashed out at North Korean ally China, writing in a tweet, "I am very disappointed in China. Our foolish past leaders have allowed them to make hundreds of billions of dollars a year in trade, yet they do nothing for us with North Korea, just talk." Trump appeared to threaten swift military action against Pyongyang when he told reporters, "North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen." North Korea responded by threatening to fire a medium-range ballistic missile into the waters around Guam, a U.S. territory in the Pacific Ocean. It did not follow through. Pyongyang sparked international outcry when it test-launched a mid-range ballistic missile, the HWASONG-12, over Japan. The UN Security Council unanimously condemned the test. Trump said in a White House statement, "Threatening and destabilizing actions only increase the North Korean regime's isolation in the region and among all nations of the world. All options are on the table." North Korea announced it had successfully tested its sixth nuclear weapon. Pyongyang said it was a powerful type of nuclear weapon called a hydrogen bomb and that it could be placed on top of a ballistic missile. Trump wrote on Twitter, "The United States is considering, in addition to other options, stopping all trade with any country doing business with North Korea." In his first speech at the United Nations, Trump called North Korea a rogue state and said Washington will have no choice than to totally destroy North Korea if Pyongyang failed to stop its nuclear weapons program. Referring to Kim, he added, "Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and his regime." Kim called Trump a mentally deranged U.S. dotard 2 days later. North Korea test-fired its third ICBM of 2017. Pyongyang claimed it was a new missile, the HWASONG-15, which was superior to the HWASONG-14 and could hit any target on the U.S. mainland. The U.S. urged allies, including Germany, to break diplomatic ties with North Korea. Berlin ignored the call. Trump also called Kim a sick puppy. Kim said in his 2018 New Year's address that the North had completed its nuclear weapons program and that a nuclear button was on his desk at all times. Trump wrote 2 days later on Twitter, "Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it is a much bigger." She handed a letter to Moon inviting him to meet the North Korean leader in Pyongyang. Tensions appeared to be thawing. Seoul and Pyongyang had already agreed to send a unified hockey team to compete at the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea. South Korean National Security Advisor Chung Eui-yong led a delegation on March 5 to Pyongyang to discuss the potential for peace talks. The next day, Chung said both sides had agreed to hold a joint summit in April and set up a telephone hotline between the two capitals. He also said Pyongyang would agree to stop its nuclear weapons and missile tests if the U.S. agreed to hold talks with the North. Chung flew on to Washington, D.C. to speak with Trump. After the meeting, Chung told reporters the U.S. president had agreed to meet Kim by May. Trump later wrote on Twitter, "No missile testing by North Korea during this period of time. Great progress being made but sanctions will remain until an agreement is reached." Meeting being planned, foreign leaders welcomed the historic breakthrough. A week before the scheduled meeting at the border between South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Moon said North Korea wanted an end to the hostile relations and had expressed a commitment to complete denuclearization of the peninsula. The next day, the telephone hotline was connected for the first time since February 2016, so Moon and Kim could talk directly. Kim announced North Korea would stop nuclear and missile tests. Kim said, "We no longer need any nuclear test or test launches of intermediate and intercontinental range ballistic missiles, and because of this, the Northern Nuclear Test Site has finished its mission." However, no mention was made of its stored nuclear materials and equipment. Kim and Moon Jae-in meet in the border town of Panmunjom in the Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, that has divided the two Koreas since the Korean War in 1953. The two leaders vowed to work towards a nuclear-free Korea and pledged an end to war. It was the first time a North Korean leader had set foot across the border since the 1950s and paves the diplomatic way for a Trump-Kim meeting in May or June. South Korea announces its propaganda loudspeakers are to be switched off for good. They had been silenced temporarily ahead of the Inter-Korean summit, which prompted the North to halt its broadcasts, too. Pyongyang also said it would adjust its time zone to that of the South as a symbolic gesture. North Korea has been half an hour behind the South since 2015. After North Korea slammed U.S. Vice President Mike Pence for comparing North Korea and Libya, Donald Trump abruptly canceled the summit. Trump said the move was due to tremendous anger and open hostility displayed by Pyongyang. A day after scrapping the summit, Trump suggested he was still open to meeting Kim. U.S. and North Korean officials met during the following week, and on June 1, Trump met one of Kim's closest aides, Kim Yong-chul, in the White House. Shortly thereafter, Trump said the summit would indeed take place on June 12 in Singapore. "I think you're going to have a very positive result in the end," he said. Trump and Kim met in Singapore as planned. They smiled, shook hands and praised how far they had come in overcoming their previous animosity. The summit ended with both leaders signing a short joint declaration that committed Pyongyang to denuclearize, and the U.S. to providing unspecified security guarantees to the North. Trump also said he would invite Kim to the White House. Author, Alexander Pearson, Nicole Goebel, KW, MSH, AP, AFP, DPA, each evening at 18:30 UTC. DW's editors send out a selection of the day's hard news and quality feature journalism. You can sign up to receive it directly here.